Hey everybody, back again, and today we're going to be going over some basic blacksmithing tools. Let's get to it. If you're going to be doing blacksmithing in any capacity, you need a forge. A forge is the device which you use to heat up your steel. You can use several different varieties. There are everything from propane to coal to waste oil burning to regular oil burning to gas to you name it, it's out there, somebody's designed it. But the easiest ones to get your hands on and the most accessible, in my opinion, would be a propane forge or a coal forge. Coal and coke as well, depending on what you can get in your area. But if you can't get access to coke, then you should probably just go with a regular coal forge or a propane forge. I got this off Amazon for $120 3 years ago or something like that, and it has served me wonderfully for those years. I do need to recoat the interior here and add some more koa wool because the refractory in there has burned out over that time. And you'll also see that I got some weight plates here for forge doors just to help keep the heat in and keep everything hot where I want it, so that way I don't lose a bunch of heat in the winter as it is fast approaching. Next thing you're going to want is a decent anvil. Now, this is not the anvil I started with, but this is the anvil I use currently. This is a Cliff Carroll 124, 125 pound farrier's anvil. But it does the job really well for knife making and sword making. Let me show you guys what I started with and give you a little bit of a warning for you beginner smiths out there, people looking into buying an anvil to start smithing. This, the ubiquitous Harbor Freight cast iron anvil. Do not touch this with a 10-foot pole. I used this for my first year blacksmithing and it was horrendous. And I'll explain why, for the most part, that is. Cast iron, for one, it is a softer material than a forged steel anvil or even a cast steel anvil. It also is what's called a dead anvil. It has almost no rebound to it whatsoever, which is very, very important because one of the main purposes of an anvil is to give you rebound so you can keep swinging your hammer. What I mean by this is that when you're swinging your hammer, you have almost no return on investment. Most of that rebound's coming from my stand here. Let me show you what a proper steel anvil does. In conclusion, when it comes to an anvil, make sure that you get something made of steel. Even a piece of railroad track ground down to have a face will work just fine for a beginner. And if you haven't figured it out already, you're going to need a hammer and you're going to need a pair of tongs. Now, depending on what you're forging, it will change up what kind of hammer and tongs you are going to want. This is a 2.5 pound engineer's hammer from Harbor Freight. All I did is, well, I used it until the handle broke. Then I put a nice wood handle on it. And if you do buy it with that rubber handle, cut that thing off and replace it with a wood handle as soon as possible. It will save you so many blisters because that rubber handle has so much grip to it. And when you get a wood handle, they come with a lacquer from the store. So sand that lacquer off or that varnish and then oil it. It will be much smoother that way. Leave you with a lot less blisters and make it much easier to work your material. Pair of tongs, I would recommend going to Ken's Custom Iron or Blacksmithing Blanks and getting some of their quick tongs or rapid tong sets. They're great for beginners. All you have to do is drill out the hole for your rivet and shape your reins. Now, if you are working primarily things like rebar and round bar that you're going to be getting from Home Depot, get some round bar tongs made. Because a good pair of tongs can be very expensive, so making them yourself, especially in a set, will give you a decent beginning project, and you can make those with just your hammer and a pair of gloves as long as you're smart about the area you're heating up on your steel. You're also going to want a water bucket. Now, this can be a plastic bucket, this can be a metal bucket. Metal buckets are better because there's no chance of you melting a hole in the side of your bucket, but this is for water, for cooling your tongs, for cooling off mild steel, for basically cooling things off in your shop. And it's always smart to have a fire extinguisher near your blacksmith shop as well. I have a chemical and I have a basic fire one. That way, if anything occurs, depending on what I'm doing at the stuff that I do. I can put out whatever kind of fire will result from my stupidity. God forbid that happens. Now, I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but the Ryobi cheap angle grinder is an awesome tool to have. Make sure you wear a face shield and some protection when you're using this, but this is my second one. I had one that I used for 2.5 years and it died. I let the smoke out of it because I used it so much about a few months ago. But this is my new one. It has a 3-year warranty, so if it dies in 2.5 years again, I'll be good. They're relatively cheap. They are corded, but compared to other angle grinders, they are a cheaper, easy to get a hold of option. And the versatility of an angle grinder cannot be understated in a metalworking shop. And of course, the part that everybody seems to forget, especially the people that end up hurting themselves, your PPE. You are always going to want a decent apron, and you're always going to want a decent pair of eyeballs, because you can't fix your eyes if you get hot metal in there. If you get a piece of scale or slag in there, it will burn your cornea, or it will burn your eye, and it will cause permanent damage and scarring. You don't want any part of that. And trust me, I've had to have a rust ring removed while I was grinding. I got a piece of metal in my eye because I was using my 4x36, and I had to have that removed and dremeled out, essentially. If you know what a Dremel tool is, there's a tool called an ocular burr, and that is used to cut the rust ring out of your eye. It is quite an intense experience. But always remember to wear your PPE. If you're grabbing your steel directly and you're not using tongs, like when you're making your first set of tongs, make sure you have a good pair of heat retardant welder's gloves or metal worker's gloves. This will let you grab onto that piece of stock and, move it around and work it. You've probably seen me do this in videos where I'm not using the tongs. And you can never have too many sets of tongs as a blacksmith. You will always need new ones because the most secure grip is the most important thing for your safety. Now, let's get out of this stuff and then I'll snap our way back to being normal again. Okay, now that that's over with, we can go over a couple of basic things. If you're looking for a propane forge, make sure that your regulator and your forge is decent. Don't get the cheapest thing you can get. Don't get the most expensive thing right away. Just get something that's going to work to heat up your project. Hammer, pick a basic one up, and you can always resurface it so you have a flat side and a round side. That way you can move your material and form your material. You can planish, you can do all the basics as you learn that. Another thing is your anvil. Don't get cast iron. I will plead with you all day, up and down, left and right, for this to save you guys so much time and pain. I've had to resurface that cast iron anvil twice now, and it's just a huge pain to deal with a cast iron anvil. So make sure you get a steel anvil. There are a lot of good ones on Amazon for cheap nowadays. The modern market is pretty spoiled compared to the market of 10 years ago when it comes to these things. I believe even Harbor Freight's starting to offer a forged steel version of their old anvil, little 55-pounder. And now we can move on to stuff you don't have to start forging, but stuff that's nice. Decent bench vise that's nice and solid and heavy is always a good deal. A metal quench bucket if you're hardening steel for your oil or your brine or whatever you're going to be running. Ignore the mess right now. I'm in the middle of doing a bunch of stuff. As I said before, tongs, tongs, tongs. Lots and lots of tongs. A nice pegboard to have your stuff near your anvil so you can just reach up and grab it while you're working is also nice. A bunch of punches, chisels, things like that. You'll be making those. Don't buy them. Don't waste your money buying them. Buy some coil spring from a scrapyard. Make them. It's great practice for the basics. I have a ton. Guillotine tools are also a great thing, but we're getting into a bunch of the more advanced stuff here. Variations of hammers can be also helpful. Nice little blacksmith's pencil. It's a soapstone, and you can forge one of these. You can find videos on how to make these pretty easily. I might actually do a video on it. We made this at the Blacksmith Guild meeting that I went to most recently. Decent PPE, the basic tools of fire, hammer, anvil, and just a little bit of time and some scrap steel. That's all you really need to start. You're going to be able to make a lot of the stuff you're going to need. As you gain experience, you'll be able to make punches and chisels. You'll be able to make more tongs, even with the basic set of tongs that you start with. Or if you get that set from Ken's Custom Iron, I think it's a set of 5 that you get for the rapid tongs or the quick tongs. One's a larger set, one's a smaller set. The larger ones are for larger projects, obviously. So if you're planning on doing bigger stuff, get those. If you're planning on doing smaller stuff, get the others. But that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Any experienced smiths? Kurt, I know you probably are going to watch this, so leave your tips for beginners down below, or your tools that you would, if you were to start blacksmithing today, knowing what you know, what tools you would pick up to begin. Until next time, God bless. Stay sharp out there.